Live from Philadelphia, this is Fox 29 Morning News.
Oh, we're going to win. We're going to win so big. Thank you very much, everybody.
Donald Trump making a big promise on one of the biggest nights in American politics. The one speaker many are saying stole the spotlight as the Republican National Convention kicks off in Cleveland. Plus, how Chris Christie really feels about not being chosen as Trump's running mate and the new position the New Jersey governor is vying for right now.
The only thing that I ask is that people are peaceful and that they respect everyone else's right.
From the public to the protesters and, of course, our very own officers. Philadelphia imposing a full security package in time for the Democratic National Convention next week. How and when the changes could affect you. And some major damage left behind by powerful storms. Trees and lines down and lots of cleanup ahead. How powerful those winds were and the break in the weather this week. Good day, everybody. It's Tuesday, July 19th, 2016. Thanks so much for waking up with us. Let's get right to Sue Serio for a look at our weather on this Tuesday morning. Hi, Sue.
Yeah, you were right, Lauren. There will be a break, but it's basically a maybe 2.5 day break from the oppressive heat and humidity. Then it comes right back just in time for the weekend. So, Lauren?
All right. Thanks so much, Sue. The first night session of the Republican National Convention in the history books in Cleveland. This comes after a wild afternoon session that rang in the proceedings at the Quicken Loans Arena. Anti-Trump delegates wanted a state-by-state roll call vote on the convention's rules, but the GOP brass passed the rules anyway on the second attempt. The other big headline, a speech from Melania Trump, the wife of presumptive nominee Donald Trump. And outside the convention hall, there were protests. So far, no major clashes between demonstrators and police. Fox News correspondent Joel Waldman is in Cleveland monitoring the latest developments.
Quite the opening here in Cleveland, the Fox News.
Coming up at 4:15, controversy surrounding Melania Trump. Did she plagiarize her speech? Also at 4:15, a new poll that just released takes a deeper look at how Americans actually feel about Donald Trump's wife. And Donald Trump has already speculated about naming potential cabinet members, and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is reportedly eyeing the attorney general spot. Federal law requires each party's presidential nominee to have its transition chief begin planning a cabinet at least 6 months before the general election. Christie has led Trump's transition team since May. The governor says he and the billionaire have never discussed the position of attorney general, but he would gladly serve on any cabinet position Trump asked him to accept.
I am for safety and security for every citizen, and I suspect that he'll pick an attorney general that will say the exact same thing and will take actions that will back that up.
Meanwhile, Chris Christie did say he was disappointed but has no discontent about Trump choosing Governor Mike Pence as his running mate. And with tens of thousands of people expected to descend upon our city for the DNC, local and federal officials are doing all they can to make sure this convention will be a safe one. Organizers and officials expect plenty of protest, but safety and security are their priorities this year. Chris Murphy joins us live from the Wells Fargo Center in South Philadelphia, where preparations are underway. Hi, Murph.
Hey, Lauren, so you've been down Market Street, right? And you've seen those welcome signs that are out, like we saw the welcome signs for the Pope. So we've seen those welcome signs. And then we're seeing a bunch of other signs that the DNC is starting on Monday. In fact, take a look at this. This is the Wells Fargo parking lot. This looks nothing like I've ever seen before. You can see all kinds of trailers. There are giant, massive tents set up. And then it's hard to see here in the dark, but the building itself, the arena, is wrapped in that 2016 Democratic National Convention that the whole country will see come next Monday. Now, let's tell you about some other signs. New surveillance cameras and chemical detectors have been installed around the Wells Fargo Center. Of course, we can't see those, especially at this hour in the dark. The Secret Service sealed off sewers. They've checked light poles, you name it. And with less than a week to go at this point, can you believe it? Philadelphia's top cop says the city has the full security package to protect dignitaries, the public, and deal with those massive protests.
The only thing that I ask is that people are peaceful and that they respect everyone else's right. We're worried about everybody. In the case of a deranged individual who thinks that they're doing something in the name of a particular cause.
Lauren in, but I guess no dice. So officials have issued a week-long ban on large trucks, those tractor trailers from I-95 and 295 You also won't be allowed to park in the Center City median along South Broad Street, though, so that's just up the street from here. The travel will be tightly restricted around the Wells Fargo Center. And also, Lauren, of course, with the RNC going on in Cleveland as of last night, the police departments and other security personnel, they're in contact with Cleveland saying, hey, give us a heads up. If you're seeing something up there, say something to us down in Philly so we might not experience the same problems down here next week.
Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, thank you so much, Chris. And stick with Fox 29 for complete coverage of both the Republican and Democratic national conventions. Our very own Bruce Gordon is live in Cleveland all week. He will be live for us at 8 and 9 o'clock this morning. And don't forget, we'll bring you extended political coverage every night starting at 11 o'clock. Now to our top stories. Delaware County is picking up the pieces this morning after being hit by a flash storm yesterday afternoon. People there saw plenty of downed trees and damage. Let's get right out to Steve Keeley, who's live in Havertown with a look at the recovery efforts underway today. Hi, Steve.
Well, we're going to start on this bad storm with some good points, and that is, first of all, nobody hurt. Secondly, it happened at 3:30. It only lasted 15 minutes, and that gave them about 5 hours of bright, calm sunshine and sunny skies to clear up, and that's why most of the damage is not even visible right now. We're at the Swiss Miss, probably the most visible spot where everybody reported the damage from. They reopened even. They had their power back on and the store wasn't hit and nobody was in line when their little Swiss Miss silo, they call it, but I always thought it was a fake windmill, basically a hollowed out thing that they build as their emblem with nothing inside, just came down after being up for 40 years.
The girls inside heard a big boom, came outside, and the whole silo just fell over. It was very, very windy. It was raining sideways for a good 10 minutes, and I think the wind just caught it underneath our lane and came through and took out the silo.
All of a sudden, I could feel the wind coming, then the rain, and then I stood there, power went out, and all of a sudden, all the tubes were bent left to right.
There was sideways rain, the wind took the whole center of the tree out. I seen it hit the car. I couldn't do anything.
So everybody kept saying how lucky everybody was. They were lucky here at Swiss Miss. Nobody was in line. Even this woman who had her brand new Ford SUV smashed by a tree was saying she was lucky that she wasn't in the vehicle or the tree didn't hit her house. So it's always great when you hear people who got hit hard by a storm just say how lucky they were. And I guess that's the good point here as we continue our positive theme with this story. Lauren, the newspapers have been delivered here. Rarely does the store that has the newspaper sitting on its doorstep be the front page headline, but it is. And so Swiss Farms, by the way, Lauren, also does sell Swiss Miss hot chocolate, if you were curious.
All right, just making sure. I know Sue Seria was giggling in the background saying, you got to tell them it's Swiss Farms, not Swiss Miss. Steve Keeley, thank you so much. Let's get to some breaking news in North Philadelphia this morning. High levels of carbon monoxide forced the evacuation of a building and some apartments. Emergency crews testing the air inside that building on the 1700 block of Cecil B. Moore Avenue. This was around 3:30 this morning. It houses several apartments, a restaurant, and a hookah lounge. Crews opened all the doors and windows and ventilated the building. No one was hurt. In Wilkes-Barre, a jail is under lockdown. A corrections officer and an inmate are both dead after an altercation at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility last night. Authorities are not saying what led to the incident or how the two died. The inmate was in jail for not registering as a sex offender. 4:12 this morning. At least one passage in Melania Trump's speech at the Republican National Convention may not have been all her own. The striking similarities between her speech and the words of Michelle Obama, plus what people really think about the wife of the Donald. All right. Thank you so much, Sue. Today, at least 1,000 Philadelphia International Airport workers set to demonstrate at the airport. They're pushing for a $15 minimum wage and better training. The workers will be joined by community supporters, elected officials, and clergy who are demanding PHL subcontractors treat their workers fairly. Philadelphia International could be forced with finding temporary workers for the upcoming DNC. An Atlantic City casino owned by billionaire Carl Icahn says it has withdrawn an offer to restore health insurance for its striking workers. The Trump Taj Mahal had given union workers until 5 last night to vote on its offer. A union leader says the offer was essentially half of what workers from other casinos received. About 1,000 union employees have been on strike since July 1st. Day one of the Republican National Convention over now, and the night's biggest speaker, Donald Trump's wife, Melania, took the stage and delivered what seemed to be a pretty good speech. Well, shortly after the speech, someone on Twitter noted parts of her speech sounded really similar to Michelle Obama's speech from 2008. This morning, we want you to decide. Take a listen.
And Barack and I were raised with so many of the same values.
All right, 4:26 this morning. So while the RNC is happening in Cleveland, here in Philadelphia, we're preparing for the DNC, right, Chris Murphy?
That's exactly right. And Lauren, for the first time since I can remember, we at this hour were not allowed to get past this gate along Broad Street to get to the Wells Fargo Center. Just one of the many security changes, and I'll have a lot more about that coming up after the break. Also, in the wake of the police ambushes both in Dallas and Baton Rouge, Commissioner Ross Lawrence says that there will be 2 officers in each cruiser. Again, the bottom line here is, with all these people coming and in light of everything that's happened nationwide lately, they just want to make sure that safety is top of mind.
Yeah, let's all cross our fingers and pray for that. Chris Murphy, thank you so much. And businesses throughout the city are ready to cash in on the crowds. At Taproom on 19th in Center City, employees are already using the hashtag DNC Deals. That's the social media hashtag where officials are promoting DNC-related discounts. And organizers promise, unlike other large events the city has hosted, moving around town will not be too hard.
It's not like the people visit. Downtown is going to be wide open. It's going to be easy to access. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Crews are putting the final pieces into place for the big week. A replica fuselage of Air Force One arrived at the convention center yesterday. Now to our top stories. PECO crews worked through the night restoring power after a flash storm tore right through Havertown yesterday afternoon. Steve Keeley is assessing the damage in Havertown this morning. Steve, what do you see out there?
Lauren, I saw a bunch of PECO trucks. I couldn't tell whether they were leaving after doing a great job or going to another job with work to do. But everywhere we were, we saw power on as well as they could. Lauren?
Steve Keeley, thank you so much. In North Philadelphia, high levels of carbon monoxide forced the evacuation of a building and some apartments there. Emergency crews testing the air inside the building on the 1700 block of Cecil B. Moore Avenue around 3:30 this morning. It houses several apartments, a restaurant, and a hookah lounge. Crews opened all the doors and windows and ventilated the building. Luckily, no one was hurt. Horsham Township testing tap water in some area homes, and it's looking for volunteers. The Township Council and the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority say an independent third party will test the tap water in about 100 homes. They're looking into the levels of chemicals that found their way into the water supply from chemicals used at the former Naval Air Station in Willow Grove decades ago. The recently passed Senate budget has $10 million, and that aid will go toward fixing infrastructure. That money will help remove detectable contaminants in the water supply. 4:38 this morning, where many people in our area are gathering for a healing service in the wake of the recent violence all across the nation. Let's go to South Jersey, where many gathered for a healing service in the wake of the recent violence all across our nation. The group packed Second Baptist Church in Atlantic City. This was last night. It was a gathering of all people, of all races, faiths, denominations, to discuss ways to come together instead of moving farther apart. Some offered prayers. Others urged the community to bridge the gap between them and police by helping police combat crime. And there were words of comfort for all the lives lost in recent weeks, both police and citizens.
And especially with Black lives and police lives. We have to respect each other, and we need to show empathy for each other.
We don't need to live in fear. And then where there is numbers, there is strength.
Police Chief Henry White says over recent years they've worked hard to reduce crime, including the number of complaints against police in Atlantic City. The number of complaints has gone down from more than 250 in 2013 to just 20 so far this year. 4:42, later in our show, how next week's Democratic National Convention events in Philadelphia could affect your last call at our local bars.
That's a look at your forecast and your traffic. You got both.
Sue pulling double duty. Thank you. Speaking of traffic, how about this? Uber getting into the spirit of the DNC, offering low fares and free food in specific neighborhoods all throughout the week. Well, today, riders can check out the East Falls neighborhood for a flat pull rate of, guess what it is, $2.15. With that, riders get a free Uber burger at Billy Murphy's Irish Saloon anytime between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. If you decide to go, be sure to head over to Fairmount Park. Okay, good news if you like to drink. Some area bars will be open until 4 a.m. during the Democratic National Convention. Lawmakers agreed to the temporary reprieve last week. The DNC Host Committee asked that bars, restaurants, hotels, and other venues hosting DNC-related events apply for permits by midnight last night. A list of those approved places is expected to be available by the end of the week. Cleveland, which is currently hosting this year's Republican National Convention, also allowed local businesses to stretch last call to 4 a.m. If you're playing the new Pokemon Go game, beware of the fake apps that are out there. Tech experts say a new group of dangerous apps are targeting those users by promising cheats and tips. Well, despite the harmless sounding titles, the apps actually contain very malicious code. The goal, of course, is to trick victims into paying for expensive bogus services or just simply take over their phones. Several of these apps were already discovered and removed from the Google Play Store. Game. Well, you're lucky if you live in New Mexico. An animal shelter there is calling all of you fanatics out to help them. Positive Paws Rescue Transport using the app's popularity to help save their shelter animals. So the shelter inviting the Pokemon trainers to take those canine companions along for the walk while you're playing the game. Get them out of those shelters and out in the streets. Organizers say both locals and tourists are volunteering.
A lot of people that like Pokemon like animals, so I figured that it would be a pretty good program to combine both dogs and the Pokemon.
This is probably the best probably Pokemon game that we could both play together, and it was good just to kind of like to play it and walk the dog at the same time.
That's actually a really good idea. Maybe we can do that here in Philly. The Pokemon dog walking event has boosted adoption rates. Several dogs have already found their new forever homes. Well, preliminary discussions have kicked off to possibly remove kickoffs from college football. Both the American Football Coaches Association's Board of Trustees and the NCAA Division I Football Oversight Committee talked about the possibility. The reason, player safety. Both groups are reviewing injury data to look into the impact of kickoffs. Preliminary indications are that injuries occur at a higher rate during those specific plays. Well, we're following breaking news overseas. The Islamic State group claiming responsibility for a train attack with an axe and a knife in Germany, injuring at least 5 people last night. The 17-year-old attacker shouted, "God is great," during that attack. He was shot and killed by a special police unit. There were about 30 passengers on that train at the time. More than a dozen were treated for shock. All right, let's take a look at your hot headlines buzzing online and on social media this morning. The woman known as the villain on The Apprentice is now director of African American outreach for the Trump campaign. Remember her, Omarosa? She announced her new position. She said she's proud to serve in the role as the country struggles to overcome a racial divide, and she knows what Donald Trump can accomplish as president. She also added Donald Trump is focused on improving the conditions of African Americans in this country. Unemployment in the African American community is at an all-time high. Now to Baltimore, where a third police officer has been acquitted of all charges in the Freddie Gray death case. A judge ruled the prosecution failed to prove Baltimore Police Lieutenant Brian Rice intentionally hurt Freddie Gray. Now Maryland's governor is speaking out, saying he doesn't see the point of more officer trials. Governor Larry Hogan told the Washington Post, quote, "It's a waste of time and money," adding, "but that's up to a court system to decide." Back here at home, a police officer is recovering from a broken sternum after someone attacked him at random. Police say Eric Watson threw a rock at a police cruiser with Officer Jarrett Davis inside yesterday. When Officer Davis got out, police say Watson attacked him and hit him in the head with the rock. Another officer ended up helping Davis arrest Watson, but ended up with a broken sternum. That officer is now at Paoli Hospital. Prosecutors have charged Watson with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, and of course, a host of other charges. Governor Tom Wolf hitting the road to talk about the state's efforts to fight opioid addiction in Pennsylvania. Yesterday, Wolf announced $20 million in new funding. That money will help about 4,500 people with treatment and finding job assistance. The governor's office says heroin and opioid overdose are the leading cause of accidental death in Pennsylvania. 4:56 this morning. Let's toss things out to Chris Murphy, who is standing by at the Wells Fargo Center. Hi there.
Hey, Lauren, of course, very quiet here at 4 something in the morning on 6 days before the Democratic National Convention.